So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to everyone to this Interculturality Leadership Workshop, which is sponsored by the Conrad and Hilton Foundation. We're very grateful for this sponsorship, which enables us to respond to the needs of congregations today, particularly in this area of culture and interculturality. This 8-day workshop is part of a series of seminars and one-day presentations, which we've had over the last 2 years. We had a 10-day workshop here at UISG in Rome for 180 participants in 2019 for congregational teams. But this particular workshop over these 2 weeks is focusing on leadership teams within congregations. So the majority of those present today belong to general leadership teams. And we hope to continue this series of collaboration into the future and to concentrate on specific continents, perhaps in future times. So this is a collaboration between 2 teams in a sense. The coordinating team are members of the Divine Word Missionaries and the Sister Servants of the Holy Spirit. And I'm going to introduce the 3 key people whom you'll meet during these 8 days. First, Sister Adriana Carla Milmanda, who introduced our prayer, who's from Argentina. And I'm particularly grateful to Sister Adriana, who last week was suffering from COVID and who is with us today. I really am so grateful, Adriana, for your presence. Adriana spent 6 years in the Fiji Islands, and she completed a master's in theology in Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. But it was her experience of living at the margins with people and sharing her life and mission with people of more than 30 nationalities that has given her her passion for interculturality. And today she works within our own congregation and with many other congregations in this field. Father Roger Schroeder is a member of the Society of the Divine Word. He worked in Papua New Guinea for 6 years and has a doctorate in missiology from the Pontifical Gregorian University here in Rome. He has taught at Catholic Theological Union for many years, and he holds the Louis L. Luzbedek Chair of Mission and Culture. Roger has published many books in the area of culture, and you can read that in his bio, which you can find on the drive. He has been working intensely in the area of interculturality with women's and men's religious congregations since 2012. So we're very grateful to have him. Father Tim Norton, SVD, was born and raised in Sydney, Australia. And after completing a Bachelor of Science, he worked as a physiotherapist prior to joining the Society of the Divine Word. He was ordained a priest in 1991, and he worked in parish ministry in Mexico for 7 years before returning to Australia to work in initial formation and then in leadership. Tim, as many of you will know, has been the director of the SVD courses in NAMI here in Rome, and he is now giving retreats and workshops in the area of interculturality. Supporting the team from UISG, you will know several of these faces. Patricia Murray, who is responsible for communications at UISG and has helped UISG to enhance the visibility of sisters and our contribution to the life of the church and our response to the needs of the world. Florence de la Villon, a member of the Society of the Sacred Heart, who looks after the technical side. She's an electronic engineer by profession, and she really helps us to enhance our technical capacity in service of our mission here at UISG. Florence is also responsible for the Migrants Project in Sicily. Sister Therese Rad from Lebanon does much of the graphic work in designing posters for our various events and is very gifted in this area. She also contributes to creating videos, PowerPoints, and she supports this technical platform. So for the next 2 weeks, all of us here will form an intercultural online community of around 230 persons. We are participating from 90 congregations, and we come from 63 countries throughout the world. We're operating in 4 different languages, so we have to learn to be patient with one another with this huge diversity. So in these few opening words, looking at the goals of our workshop, I want to put us in the context of today. Let's look at what's happening in our world, worldwide, because systems theorists tell us that what is happening in the larger global system is replicated within our subsystems. So we need to acknowledge this and reflect on these realities within our congregations and perhaps during these coming days. So the first slide reminds us of the times in which we are living, these difficult times. But during these difficult times, we are discovering a new solidarity, a new connectivity across our world, across congregations, provinces, which span many different languages and culture. So is this perhaps a graced moment, inviting us to a new way of being aware and extending our boundaries outside of our own confines? Is this a moment, an invitation to embrace a much wider world with its luxurious cultural diversity? However, with this global consciousness, there are other movements competing, which seek to separate and divide us from one another. We see walls and barriers being constructed as people see themselves as insiders and outsiders. Are we as religious not being called to be prophetic, to build bridges that join our luxurious diversity into a multifaceted whole? And then we have experienced the Black Lives Matter movement, which has focused our attention worldwide on racism. And the words, "I can't breathe," have come to symbolize various ways in which people feel suffocated. Do we not need to explore whether racism exists in our congregations? Did it occur in the past? Is it still present in perhaps more subtle ways? At a cultural level, are there sisters who perhaps feel that they can't breathe because of the dominant congregational culture? So there are some global trends that are impacting all of us. And then when we look inside religious life, we see a growing diversity. My experience here in Rome over 20 years has seen a growing cultural diversity, particularly at the level of leadership teams. They are increasingly multicultural. However, one of my learnings is that we don't become intercultural simply by living together. It needs work. Work in terms of learning about the dynamics of culture and intercultural communication. Work in terms of language skills, as well as acquiring new skills, and also learning to honestly name attitudes that are in need of conversion. Perhaps we also need to learn lessons from our past, the mistakes we made in entering new cultures to evangelize them, not knowing how to come as stranger to a new place and how to interact with the host who was the welcoming one. Finally, I think we have to acknowledge gaps in our knowledge, our attitudes, and skills. And we have learned from the business world, who have taken this area of culture so seriously, that we ourselves have to read, reflect, have conversations, examine attitudes, broaden our knowledge, and acquire new skills. And so, with this in mind, we have outlined 3 objectives for our time together during these 2 weeks. The first objective is to provide core teams of 4 or 5 persons from congregational leadership to give them the basic knowledge, attitudes, including attitudes that lead to transformation, and the skills necessary for strengthening the intercultural life and ministry for themselves as leaders, core teams, but also for their ministry within their religious congregation or institute as a whole. So this first key objective is about learning new knowledge, acquiring and examining attitudes that lead to conversion and transformation, and then looking at the skills that we need in dealing with intercultural life and ministry. The second objective is to provide a process through which individual congregational leadership teams can develop next steps and/or action plans for strengthening interculturality within their congregation. So there is no doubt that this whole area of becoming intercultural or strengthening interculturality is crucial to the life of each congregation and its mission. This is the world we're living in, but it's also part of the changing nature of our composition within religious congregations. It's one of the areas that was highlighted strongly in the recent document from the dicastery called New Wine in New Wineskins. And third objective is to strengthen the network of congregations who are well prepared for and committed to interculturality, and who are willing to engage as much as possible in collaborative activities and future intercongregational programs on the national, regional, and/or international level. So in other words, these seminars, these workshops are helping to strengthen our network and networks of those who are willing to collaborate together and offer programs either locally, nationally, or regionally. In other words, we're not just learning for ourselves, but we're acquiring new knowledge and new competences for the sake of religious life in general, and also for the sake of our mission and ministry in the world today. And so I'm so grateful to welcome Adriana, Roger, Tim, and their expertise and the expertise of many of their colleagues who will join us during the week. And to thank Patricia Murray, Florence de la Villon, and Therese Rad, who will support us during this work. And that to remember that we operate within a world that's grappling with the pandemic, that's looking at walls and barriers being raised, that's facing racism, that's reflecting on the growing diversity in religious life, and that is learning lessons from the past so that our mistakes can be corrected and our future will acknowledge the dignity, the diversity, and the richness of the cultures that are among us. And so our three simple objectives are to resource the congregational teams, to invite you to become part of a global network, a regional network, a local network, and also to explore the next steps that you need to take within your own congregations. And so I welcome each of you today. We look forward to the days ahead. And we know that it will be an enriching experience as we take another step together in creating a global sisterhood and a global brotherhood. Thank you very much indeed.